let's get started. A preamble. Never really engaged with this individual's content before. This Grant Ruddo. I'll go with Grant Ruddo. Sure. Fuck it. Whatever. But I've seen this phenomenon happen before. I heard of the sort of pay now or buy now, pay later scheme on, I believe it was Doordash. It hit the news. Seeing how there has to be like a finance scheme for, I don't know, like ordering food. I'll be quite honest. I thought it was kind of insane. I'm just like, why the hell is this a thing? What the heck is going on? And, I instantaneously became curious and sort of wanted to investigate more. There was like a Majority Report video that I saw about it saying like, the reason why it's like a new basically monetization scheme, and Grant over here does get into that, where it's not anything similar, like not anything like synonymous like you've never seen in the past before, but it's basically like taking a new form that uses a lot of different manipulative tactics to make people, well, buy shit. The consequences of like marketing and stuff like that. And we obviously know what the problems with stuff like this is. Manipulating like a lot of poor people to have to buy shit. Well, it becomes a lot harder for them in order to be able to, well, live and survive. We've talked about stuff like this before, right? So what do we got here? The buy now, pay later trap.
Why is paying for so addictive?
They literally once financed a bottle of body wash.
You know what? I'm gonna afterpay this. It's gonna make me feel less guilty to pay it in 4 installments of.
Like, the idea that you are paying for like basic necessities in what, like in sort of like 4 payment installments, I think is fucking insane. And like you're feeling guilty about it. That's so weird to me. I mean, it's pretty emblematic of just like how poor, broadly speaking, people have gotten, right? Like, and how it's like more difficult than ever to be able to, well, afford sort of average necessities. We've talked about this sort of like topic before. Like, we broadly speaking, we know why it's so tough out there. So it's so difficult for people to be able to afford like basic goods and necessities, because wages have not kept up with like productivity or with inflation for how many years? What do we need to do? We'll do the thing. Wage over productivity graph. Productivity graph. We know the meme, right? It's been going on for the past 40 fucking years. Started in the 70s, because guess what started happening in the 70s? The weakening of unions. And it exacerbated itself significantly in the 80s, because of guess who? Fucking Ronald Reagan basically making it the standard for the federal government to be able to break up unions with the breakups on the air traffic controllers union, right? So guess what? With unions now weaker and weaker than ever, it becomes way easier for people, broadly speaking, a lot of individuals, a lot of workers, to get very easily exploited. And shit like this is the byproduct. This is the fucking consequence. People are getting way more productive. Wages are not keeping up with that. And like people want to wonder about like, oh, why is there like an affordability crisis within the United States of America? Well, this is why. Quite literally. Thank you, Ronald Reagan. Very cool. And now shit like this, predatory, like people who obviously want to take advantage of this, predatory like tech companies in particular, because guess what? Guess the sort of storefronts that this mostly happens on, and Grant gets into this. It's all on like TikTok storefronts. Or like, what other like social media platform is a storefront, right? I don't like. We could talk about like how, I don't know, efficacious, how good it is for there to be a storefront on a platform like TikTok. Personally, I think it is wretched. It is horrible that this is the case. Why the fuck does TikTok, a platform that can be highly fucking addictive, have a fucking storefront? People already go down fucking TikTok rabbit holes as is. Now you're fucking telling me that people can also just peruse and go down like a sort of spending spree as a result of that? I think that is an environment that is ripe for exploitation. And guess what? Now you have like companies that are furthering that sort of exploitation, taking advantage of the sort of affordability crisis that broadly exists because of inflation that happened globally speaking. Now with like Donald Trump sort of like deficit increasing like policies and GDP reduction sort of policies with his like dumbass tariffs. This is stuff that happens. It makes things way more difficult for average people to be able to afford stuff. And so guess what? Now you have to do fucking financing schemes for basic necessities and goods, which is insane to me, dude.
$81 or whatever.
That's like having a black American Express to me. I can use it anywhere, anytime I get ready.
I'm using Klarna to pay for these Chris Brown tickets.
Look at this chart right here. This shows the total non-housing consumer debt in America over the last 10 years. And in 2024, Americans collectively owe more than $5 trillion, which is enough to pay for every NFL.
That is fucking insane. $5 trillion of non-consumer debt exists in America now. That's fucking ridiculous, bro.
NBA, and MLB team 10 times over. And to make matters worse, we are constantly surrounded by psychological tricks and hidden fees to drive us further and further into debt. The worst of these tricks, the buy now, pay later programs that have been designed to take advantage of young adults.
So when you buy a $100 pair of shoes and you only have to pay $25 that day, and then the pair of shoes show up at my apartment 3 days later.
Girl math.
The shoes are $25. Why do I care if in 2 months I have to pay another $25? I don't know me 2 months from now. She can deal with that.
Buy now, pay later is a short.
Yeah. That is a cycle. You're getting girl. You're getting fucking manipulated, dude. That's not how that works. Oh yeah, dude. I don't know. Like, I don't know what I'm gonna think of this like guy in like 2 months. You know, we can do that sort of like logic. I don't know what I'm gonna think of this guy. That's like a 2 month later problem. What if something happens in between those 2 months? Right? Let's say, hypothetically speaking, you're working at a job, as one typically does, and you lose your job and you have a ton of bills that you need to pay. Guess what? Now in those 2 months, guess what you need to do? Fuck. Shit, now I have to pay my fucking goddamn buy now, pay later thingy for a product that I bought. Shit. But I don't have the money to be able to do that because I haven't been able to find work, and I had to use all of the money that I had saved up, the meager amounts that I had saved up in order to pay my bills. It's fucking crazy. Also, when Trump says you don't need $30, he finances the very people who run these scams. Exactly, Boy Meets Mini.
Short-term financing option that is offered by companies like Affirm, Klarna, or Afterpay. You'll typically see these options pop up on e-commerce stores, offering you the ability to buy what you want today while deferring your payment over a certain number of installments. So if you're looking to buy a new suitcase for a trivia coming up and it's going to cost you $300, instead of paying that all today, you can buy the suitcase today and then split the $300 across 4 equal interest-free payments. And you might think, great, interest-free. I can just sign up for these payments and then worry about paying it sometime later down the road. But it's not quite that simple. These buy now, pay later programs.
Yeah, I was about to say, interest-free? I don't fucking believe that for even 3 fucking seconds. Companies love charging interest because it's a way they make money. Yeah, that's true. We love usury, don't we, Boy Meets Mini? Very Christian. Very good. We love, listen, I'm a good Christian boy. I do usury. It's very good. You know, I like money. I love money. You like money. We all like money, don't we, folks? But yeah. We can broadly see like what the fuck is going on here. It's we got some sussy manipulation tactics going on here.
Programs aren't necessarily groundbreaking financial technology. In fact, buy now, pay later programs are kind of a newer, modernized version of the old school layaway programs that you would see at stores like Kmart and Sears. These layaway programs allowed you to place a deposit on an item like a dishwasher, for example. And then the store would reserve that dishwasher for you to collect once you had paid off the dishwasher through their installment plan. But these layaway programs kind of fell off throughout much of the mid-20th century, mainly due to the introduction of credit cards and revolving lines of credit. Instead of using a layaway program and waiting to collect their item, people could just swipe a credit card, get their item today, and then worry about paying off that over the next couple months or years. The only problem—
Yeah, that was sort of like one of the main factors that led to the Great Depression, for example. A lot of people, especially like a lot of poor people, not as many like rich people, but a lot of poor people were getting a lot of credit cards and were accruing a lot of credit card debt. And when the payments were coming up for all that fucking credit card debt, you know what people couldn't do? Oh, they couldn't pay back what they owed. Uh-oh. And guess what happened as a byproduct? Well, this is one of the factors. This isn't the only sole factor that led to the Great Depression, but this is one of the reasons. Is, hold on, well, wait a minute. Oh, we don't have enough money in order to be able to pay back the amount of debt that we currently have on the credit cards. Now you might have to file for like shit like bankruptcy and whatnot. So this is one of the byproducts. This is one of the results.
Problem is that a credit card will incur interest. People realize that if they didn't pay their credit card down on time, they would end up owing more than they initially spent on the item. So along came the modern marvel that is buy now, pay later, which gave you the best of both worlds. Get your product today, pay it off over a longer period of time, all while doing it interest-free.
And that idea began hooking people in because buy now, pay later has seen some explosive growth over the last 5 years, going from $2 billion in transaction volume in 2019 to $24.2 billion in 2021, and it's projected to reach as high as $122 billion in 2025.
But this explosion wasn't just
We
happening
love
in vacuum. It's actually part of three major cultural shifts that we've been seeing. First is the financialization of everything, meaning we've moved from a completely cash-based society to a society in which we look at even a $5 coffee as an opportunity to finance the transaction. Second, we have the rise.
Okay, first off, that is completely fucking insane to me, dude. The fact that a $5 fucking coffee can be like financed is just nuts to me. But yeah, this is also a point that I have been constantly bringing up in terms of like media environments. Why are we currently facing this like sort of malaise that we are currently facing ourselves under? Because everything has been completely commodified to shit. Mark Fisher, I'm looking at you. Capitalist fucking realism, as always. Rearing its fucking ugly, ugly head, as always. Where, since everything has been commodified to such a ridiculous, ridiculous degree, it becomes like, not commodified to like such a ridiculous, ridiculous degree. It's become sort of like to the point where it's just like, oh, if you're just not like, it's become like sort of easier more and more than ever in order to be able to pay for particular products and whatnot. The problem with that should be fairly obvious. If it's easier than ever to pay for certain stuff, it makes it way easier for a lot of companies in order to be able to engage in manipulative tactics in order to be able to make you pay money that you don't have for particular, I don't know, McGubbin or Guffin that you need to have like right now. Like, you know, like shit like fear of missing out and all this other fucking bullshit. Stuff that's been covered broadly speaking in capitalist realism.
Rise of social media driven consumption. As influencers showcase luxury lifestyle and products, buy now, pay later allows the average consumer the ability to experience.
This is also a very good point being raised here by Grant. Yeah, all these like fucking social media influencers saying like, dude, look at how swag my life is because of Spimbly Pimbly. Get your spimbles and your pimbles in order to get swagged out like me or some shit. And leveraging parasociality and parasocial relationships that people have with date content creators in order to sell you products.
Those same things without actually incurring the cost today. And third, we have the post-pandemic spending boom, which has consumers using buy now, pay later as a form of revenge spending or buying things they feel like they missed out on during the pandemic. Combine all of that with a declining financial literacy among most young adults, and you have the perfect storm to make buy now, pay later explode as a new mentality. But why is this even a problem?
Wow, that is also a good point, right? I didn't even think about like, yeah, sort of like reduced financial literacy. I think this is broadly speaking also from a lot of other sort of topics that I've also talked about before. Death of education, the death of subjectivity, and all this. Daho is mentioning the death of subjectivity again. Fucking put that on your fucking bingo card. Whoa, crazy. Like, it is sort of like and the reason why I always bring up like the death of subjectivity is because like if you're not able to sort of like empathize and understand like your broader sort of like surroundings that you are currently fucking engaging with or whatever, it becomes a lot more difficult in order to be able to make sound decisions, like sort of sound decisions and positions and thoughts within your life in order to be like, well, you know, is it like a smart, efficacious decision for me in order to be able to do this thing in order to survive in life or whatever? You know, stuff like this can be like mentioned to the nines and stuff like that. Like it becomes very, very difficult. And like, you know, we live in a very, very consumerist society, as again, you know, our boy Mark Fisher has mentioned before in Capitalist Realism. You know, the boy has said this constantly before. Oh man, that, hey, due to the sort of highly consumerist society that we engage with, it has become, further and like way, way, way more easier for people to be like, well, if I just get like this thing now, like, it doesn't really matter. It's not that big of a deal. I'll be able to like pay it off, like whenever. When that's how people try to generally sort of hook you in. It's a manipulation tactic. Also, the people who say we need public schools to teach finance are complete grifters, usually selling crypto. That is a good fucking point, Boy Meets Mini. Yeah, it's not about like, the problem isn't like not people not like learning finance or whatever. The issue is the fact that, like I mentioned earlier, it's really like difficult for people to sort of have like these ideas of what they are supposed to do in terms of finance and like fiscal responsibility if, guess what, wages are as complete crap as they are, and productivity wage gap rearing its fucking ugly head. If we're talking about stuff like this is broadly speaking why it's a lot more difficult for people to make sound fucking financial decisions, because nobody has any fucking money. That's the fucking problem.
If they're not charging interest, how can they actually be taking advantage of me as a consumer? To answer that question, we first need to look at the differences between buy now, pay later programs and traditional credit cards. Because on the outside, they're basically the same thing. Both financial devices allow you to buy something today that you might not necessarily be able to afford or be willing to put cash down today for. But a credit card usually involves some sort of approval process, application, review, and a credit report hit. Meanwhile, buy now, pay later programs offer an almost instantaneous approval for your purchase in the moment. Additionally, as we discussed, credit card...
That is fucking crazy. Yeah, because credit cards are typically provided by banks. And back in the day, before the Great Depression, anyone could have just gotten a credit card. Literally anyone. So, that's crazy, dude. But, I got money in a job. Maybe all these people are just dumbasses. Yeah, that's true. Real. Thank you, random crypto grifter. And guess who brought in fucking regulations in order to be able to take care of that stuff? Oh, crazy. It was the federal government under FDR. Ridiculous. But, a lot of these, like, dumbass conservatives are going to be like, oh, well, we don't need to do any regulation or anything in order to be able to take care of this stuff. Because I guarantee you, the way to be able to fix this kind of a problem is you need strong, effective regulation saying, like, no, you need to do an approval process, make sure that people's credit score and that they're going to be able to pay off their interests on time. So, they don't risk, like, going bankrupt, for fuck's sake.
Cards can accrue interest if not paid off by the end of the month, and that rate can be at crazy high rates, usually around 19 to 23%. On top of that, if you're late with your payment or you miss a payment, credit card companies can also add on late payment fees that just end up waterfalling you into insane amounts of credit card debt off of fairly simple purchases to begin with. And on the other hand, buy now, pay later offers 0% interest, which sounds great, but that all depends on if you actually pay your payments on time. If you don't, you'll be subject to late payment fees that can range anywhere from $2 to $15 per payment and going all the way up to 25% of the total value of the purchase you made initially. And with all that said, buy now, pay later still might sound like a perfectly good alternative to credit cards, which is exactly what they want you to think. Because buy now, pay later programs weren't necessarily designed to help the consumer like you or me. They were designed for stores and brands that want to sell more through their website or in their stores. After all, that's why brands are willing to pay 2 to 3% more for their transaction fees to use a buy now, pay later program versus a traditional credit card processor. To give you an example, let's look at a $100 purchase. If you bought a $100 item using a normal credit card on their site, the brand was typically going to incur about a $2.50 charge to process that payment. And on the other hand, if you were to use a buy now, pay later program, that transaction fee that the brand has to pay goes from $2.50 to about $5. But the merchant fees are just the beginning when it comes to buy now, pay.
I wonder why it's 5%. Is it because of like website fees or something? Is it easier to like run like bank locations or something, like less expensive to do that? Server maintenance or something? I wonder why it's 5% for those processing fees. I'm curious about that. I don't know if it's gone into in this video. Probably service overhead, maybe, right? Because I mean, you have to maintain like more servers and stuff. And also, they're on, like, social media platforms, right? Which means they also have to pay for, like, the ability to be able to stay licensed on the social media platforms. That's also another thing.
Pay later. So let's look at how these companies actually make money beyond just charging the brand that hosts them on their website. First, like we just discussed, they're going to collect that merchant fee, which is anywhere from 4 to 6% of the transaction price. Second, they profit from late fees, like we talked about earlier, which has turned out to be a pretty substantial revenue source for companies like Affirm and Klarna, because 1 in every 3 users of these buy now, pay later programs actually ends up missing a payment at least once. And third, every purchase that is made reveals something about you or your shopping habits, and these companies have realized that that is very valuable information for other brands. So they actually harvest a lot.
Yeah, they fucking do data brokerage. That's probably where they make, that's like where the big chunk probably comes from. It's all fucking data broker shit. Every fucking time. I look inside my social media web store. Data brokers. I do like the funny like cat face where it's just like a complete blank expression. It's just like, I look inside. Data brokers.
A lot of the data from your checkout pages and then sell it to other brands that can then use it in their marketing or in their ad target. And finally, they benefit from the sheer volume of loans being opened up. By packaging yours and everybody else's debt together and selling it to larger financial institutions, they can make money even when you pay on time. In other words, they've created a system where they win no matter what happens to you financially. So now let's look at buying an iPhone for
We love
$1,000.
winning, folks,
When you reach the
don't
checkout
we?
page, you have 3 options. Number 1, pay the full $1,000 up front. This is the simplest, cleanest, and easiest way to get out of the checkout scot-free. Option 2, you can use a credit card with the typical 22% APR to purchase the phone. And if you only made the minimum payments, you would end up paying about $1,480 over the course of 5 years, with $480 of that being the interest alone. And option number 3 is you could use Afterpay's 4-payment installment plan where you pay $250 today and then $250 every 2 weeks until the plan is paid off. Which sounds like the best deal to you? You see, brands have mastered psychological manipulation throughout their website, but
The funniest thing about that is, they make it such that that sounds like the best, but it's not always the best. Like, because like they make it bi-weekly because typically if you're working, for example, you get paid out bi-weekly. So it's just like, oh, that's perfect because, you're able to make your payment sort of your first payment during your first week when you have to buy, and then you can just make another payment the next 2 weeks when you get again your payment sorted out. But again, what if you lose your job? What if there's like a delay in your pay? What if like for whatever reason you do a bad job during those 2 weeks and your work just refuses to pay you? Now that's probably illegal, but I don't think it's a thing that's it's completely out of the ordinary, right? That's not a ridiculous thing. So, it becomes one of those situations like, this is all kind of a little sus. It's a little silly. It's a little weird. It's like, I don't know what's going on here, folks.
specifically on the last hurdle, which is the checkout page. And they do this through 4 key tricks. First, they exploit what psychologists call the pain of paying. By splitting the cost over a longer period of time, your brain actually registers less financial pain than paying the full amount up front. Second, they trigger what is called the temporal
Oh, that's like the pain of paying. Is that like basically why like for example, the meme of like, Amazon shipment $49.99 plus $0 shipping, and then you have like $39.99 plus $10 shipping, right? Shit like that. It's so fucking goofy. Yeah, that are delayed in time. Yeah, it's all about like instant. Yeah, and also like playing off of like people's sort of like instant gratification, like fucking gamification bullshit as well, right? That's also a factor.
Discounting, which is our tendency to value immediate rewards more than future benefits, or otherwise known as instant gratification. Pay just $25 today.
Right.
Sounds a lot better than waiting and saving.
Instant
up for it.
gratification.
Third, they will create artificial urgency by simulating limited time offers in the checkout page. And
that's FOMO. FOMO shit all the fucking time. We know all too well about like social media companies and like video games and shit like that use FOMO all the time. Oh man, if you gotta participate in this here event because it's only here once, and if you don't do it, you're gonna lose out. Oh man, shit like that.
And finally, they use colors and shapes to direct your eye exactly where they want you to be looking. Have you ever noticed that the buy now, pay later button is often highlighted in a brighter color, and it's sometimes even pre-selected when you reach the checkout page? These aren't accidents.
Dude, that's a fucking thing that people do in game development all the fucking time, right? I remember there was like a discourse of people complaining about like the Resident Evil 4 remake having those like yellow paint splotches on like ladders and like indicating for places to go. There's a reason why that's a specific sort of design in video games, to make it very clear to the player, because anyone can be like a player of a video game, right? People who have like, I don't know, more trouble like distinguishing colors, for example. Being able to sort of like highlight and make it very, very clear within a game's messaging about what a player is supposed to accomplish is probably one of the most important things in game design on the planet. Because if your game does a really bad job communicating to the player what they are supposed to do at a given moment, then how can you say that that is a good game, for example, right? This is the exact same shit that all these fucking marketing companies, the same employees that they have also employed, right? This is all, again, gamification fucking bullshit, right?
These are specific design decisions to short circuit your brain to making a financial decision more on an impulse than with rational thinking. Instead of thinking about a $100 purchase rationally and over a longer period of time, they'd rather have you just click the pay $25 now and worry about it later on. And again, this isn't necessarily
Dude, just do it now and pay later,
because people are
forehead.
always looking for interest-free ways of purchasing things so that their money can go and earn them more money while they're paying off the other thing that they purchased. But to do so requires some financial education or experience. And sadly, most Americans are completely undereducated when it comes to financial literacy. So the instant gratification syndrome kicks in and they buy practically everything with buy now, pay later, with no real concern that they will in fact have to pay that off at some point. All they're worried about is the price that they will pay today, which is exactly how you end up with this.
I've done groceries, I've done all kinds of crap on Affirm and Klarna, but it adds up and then you are in a chokehold. And in some ways, it is worse than having credit card payments. It's crazy.
Because buy now, pay later is so...
Dude, having a... Because it's even for basic shit that they do this for. Hyper commodification, capitalist fucking realism. This is what it looks like, folks. Just the sheer crazy amount of like money people are being told to like pay into stuff, because again, like for a lot of people they're just poor and they just can't really do like, I don't know, pay much more for like a lot of other stuff, because like I said before, like, you know, I've mentioned this earlier, stuff like, you know, some people just are unable to pay for particular things because they like lost their job and they need to be able, they had to pay their bills because it was like way more important and stuff like that. There's like so many different factors that lead to stuff like this being as ridiculously predatory as they are.
So easy to do, people are starting to use it on more and more occasions where it's really not meant to be used. Instead of just using it on a big purchase like a new fridge or a TV, they're starting to use it on smaller things and truly financing items that have no business being financed. A crazy story that we recently saw is that Klarna is now on Doordash, which allows you to finance your $15.
Oh, hey, this is where I heard about this. Yeah, it's on fucking Doordash. Like, yeah, financing a $15 like fucking purchase on like a fucking burrito is fucking insane to me, dude. Because guess what? If you don't have, because people can also just like forget about it, right? I think like Grant even mentioned that earlier. You can just forget, right? Like forehead, just be like, you were busy with like a bunch of other shit and you're just like, oh fuck, I forgot to pay that shit. I've forgotten to pay for like my internet bill before. I'm not immune to this. Anyone can just forehead forget because they just had a bunch of other stuff, or just like, they just forget, you know? No human is perfect, obviously. But this is what happens. Because if you keep accruing all these like tiny small payments and you just forget to pay, you're fucked. Because guess what? Those fucking late fees and those interest payments that you now have to do, well, not interest payments, but those fucking late fees are going to start stacking up like instantly, and they're going to stack up real quick. All this shit's about to get deregulated. Oh, that doesn't, like, of course, yeah. Wait, Republicans love this kind of fucking shit. They love fucking exploiting the poor for the vestiges of the rich. That's crazy. Like, there's stuff I want to watch on Netflix, Hulu, etc., but all those fees. Exactly. All the fucking subscription programs. You know, for, like, all these, like, stupid fucking morons who are just saying, like, oh, yeah, you know, look at Twitch falling behind and, you know, shitting the bed. Looking at you, fucking Dan Saltman. That's a general problem with all streaming services, okay? Because of all the fucking goddamn associated fees and shit. And, you know, the end of the pandemic. But, well, you know.
Burrito over 4 payments of $375 instead of paying the full $15 up front. Again, not a necessarily terrible thing when looked at in a vacuum, but when you expand this to consider that someone who's financing a burrito is also probably financing a lot of other things, that's when the real problem starts to arise. Bad spending habits like this lead to what we call loans.
Yeah, the idea that you have to fucking finance a burrito, dude. It's crazy.
Stacking, pretty much what it sounds like, taking out loan after loan after loan and stacking them on top of each other. And because buy now, pay later programs make it so easy to do so, most consumers don't even realize how much debt they're actually accruing. In fact, in 2022, 63% of buy now, pay later borrowers have more than one loan going at one time. And this is where it gets really scary. Because these programs are designed to offer credit with little to no approval process, it's almost like they're targeting people that don't know how to manage their money. All they see is, oh, I can buy this $1,000 thing for $250 today, and they just click buy. When in reality, over 69% of buy now, pay later users are already in debt on another credit card. And 28% of buy now, pay later borrowers are between the ages of 18 and 24 years old. Most of these people don't even understand.
And guess what? Just like it said with the CFPB, guess what just got fucking defunded? Because guess what? Motherfucking companies like this do fraud all the fucking time. All of the fucking time. Guess who just fucking defunded the companies, the agency that returned billions of dollars to average fucking consumers? Oh, the CFPB, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. And guess what? It just got fucking torn to shreds. And yeah, like you're saying, Boy Meets Mini, at this scale, this could cause a market crash, but with groceries instead of fucking housing. Which, just the thought of that is just completely fucking insane. It doesn't even have to be fucking groceries. It can be like body wash or shampoo or toothpaste, for fuck's sake. Anything that an average person would use as like for basic sort of for like basic fucking needs, right? For cleanliness or something. Yeah, all of this in the richest country on the planet, by the way. Richest country on earth, by the way. You know, GDP of trillions upon trillions of dollars, and people are having to do finance plans for fucking basic necessities. Insane.
The concept of how a credit card works, and by giving them this buy now pay later option, it's almost like they have this unlimited stream of money that never needs to actually be paid off. Again, don't get me wrong, there are definitely some advantages to the system if you know how to play it, but the vast majority of people using the system are not taking advantage of it. They are just getting taken advantage of. So what do you do? As a consumer, should I completely stay away from buy now pay later, or are there some circumstances where it makes sense? And to answer that question, the most important piece of advice I can give you is to never spend more than you currently have, whether that be through a credit card or a buy now pay.
Yeah, here's the problem with that. I don't disagree with that advice at all, but that's just so fucking difficult, right? Given the sort of like a consumerist society that the fucking US exists under, there's a lot of like pressures. People need to having to survive for basic necessities. And also like, because I don't think that this is being said here by Grant for like maliciously. I would not agree with that. I think he's just saying that because it's just like forehead, easy, obvious advice. Like I don't think that, like, with all the stuff that I mentioned earlier, sort of all the like factors, it's the wage productivity gap. You know, let's look at the fucking graph again. It's much harder for people to be able to buy stuff, right? Inflation has not been keeping up with wages either. That's also another factor that's contributing to this. The sort of like broader consumerist society that the US exists under. There's a lot of like social pressures for people to sort of like consume, for like lack of a better term, like tons of like different advertising as well, of people being like, you're gonna buy this, you're gonna buy it, you're gonna buy it, you have to buy it, you have to buy it, you gotta buy it, right? Like, you know, there's also a point that was brought up in this video. Like, it's tough out there. It's harder and harder than ever for people to sort of like, you know, engage in these sort of like habits, like to well, not consume, for like lack of a better term. It's difficult out there.
Pay later option. If you don't have the cash in your bank, don't spend it. And that is by far the easiest way that you can keep yourself out of credit card debt. And if you feel confident in your financial abilities, feel free to use a credit card or buy now pay later option to earn more interest on your cash while it's sitting in your account versus just spending it immediately. But if you don't feel confident about this, treat your credit cards and a buy now pay later program as if
but interest rates on banks are so fucking dog shit, dude. Like, let's be honest here. Like, what he's saying isn't exactly wrong. Like, it's true. The problem is that, like, interest rates that banks offer are just so fucking ass, dude. They are so fucking bad, bro. Like, it's like, what, per month, like, a 1 to 2, like, sort of, rate of return or some shit? That's fucking dog shit, dude. Where with at least, like, with certain, like, savings plans, you can get, like, depending on the savings plan, on the risk that you're willing to take, like, 5 to 10% or something. It depends, obviously, but, you know... Don't rely on your bank to accrue a lot of interest on the money that you have in your account unless you have a lot of money in your account.
if it's hooked directly up to your checking account. If you spend $100, that's $100 coming directly out of your account. Another tip I have is to avoid stacking these loans, because that is where things can get very messy very quickly. If you start financing weekly expenses like gas, groceries, or that Friday night Chipotle bowl, it becomes a slippery slope, because it is 100 times easier to get into debt than it is to get out of debt. But there you have it. The truth about buy now, pay later. These companies spend millions of dollars on psychological research to get you to spend more than you can actually afford. But now you know a little bit more about how to protect yourself. And if you like this video, make sure to check out this video that covers the business of Formula One and how billionaires use debt to fund their...
Hey, Boy Meets Minnie. I guess that's something you could look at, you know? Yeah, Formula One, dude. That is probably racist. That's true. And real. But yeah, you know, like, guess that's that for that video. Fantastic. Excellent. Good little video there by Grant, sort of explaining the sort of buy now, pay later sort of scheme. And, like, we can do historic parallels to stuff like this before, right? Like you mentioned earlier, Boy Meets Minnie. This can... If this gets, like, deregulated enough and bad enough, because let's be honest here, I don't expect or trust Congress in order to be really able to do anything about this at all. Let's be honest here, these companies are going to have a 4-year reign to just do whatever the fuck they want. this can potentially cause a complete market crash and just be a complete, utter, total disaster for the global economy if, it gets bad enough somehow in some way. You just have to kind of wait and see for that to see how it plays out. But a lot of like the sort of analogies I brought up fucking earlier, like how this is similar to like the Great Depression, how a lot of poor people started taking out a lot more credit cards under their fucking names in order to be able to just pay for stuff instantly. And guess what? A ton of interest got accrued. The banks didn't have the money in order to be able to take care of that stuff. And guess what? Market crash happens as a fucking result. Because no one had money in order to be able to pay off their fucking credit card debt. And they started accruing tons of fucking interest. I think this is like also a thing that, if I don't remember correctly. I'm trying to remember who exactly said this before. But I think this is the thing that Sam Hyde does, right? He takes out a bunch of credit cards. He never pays them back. And he knows that like the given how the laws work, the banks can't like go after him. What he's doing is fraudulent, obviously. Like, very, very obvious. Like, that's not like hyperbole or anything. He does that. He's gonna get caught. Apparently, he has such a great understanding of how it works, and that's just like it's like impossible for you to get caught. I do think it would be really funny if he did end up getting caught. Let's be honest here. That would be so fucking funny if he did get caught. And eventually, like, basically, like, they tried to like submit suits to do something about it, but if he just doesn't answer or reply, well, guess what? They just kind of drop it because they know they're not going to get anywhere, because they don't want to spend the resources to try to catch him, right? Because it's just not worth it. That's like the sort of like justification that's at play there. But, Sam Hyde aside, obviously, we're talking about like more average people here. We, broadly speaking, we have an understanding as the sort of like byproducts for us to like what's going on here. It's a lot of like psychological sort of like techniques that are broadly speaking used in order to, well, manipulate people into going into these schemes in order to put them in a fucking debt trap that they can't pay themselves out of. Eventually they have to file bankruptcy, and guess what? They're going to get that money somehow. But again, like, it eventually with the example of the Great Depression, it gets to a certain scale where it doesn't matter what you can do. If you have so many people that have accrued so much debt, at a particular point, there's nothing you can do about it. And guess what? It's going to cause a market crash. Don't be surprised that if there's another potential for a Great Depression, for example, that these motherfucking companies might have had a hand to play in causing this through a lot of like potentially like sort of deregulatory schemes. Now, what I'm doing here, it's pure speculation. Like, I have no basis or any evidence, right? But like, I'm kind of going off of a lot of sort of like historical parallels. We've seen this, broadly speaking, happen before. And just because it's happened before in the past doesn't mean it couldn't really happen again, right? It's very important to be highly, highly wary of these, well, companies that are looking to basically, exploit people for, if they have, like, basically, like, no resources, right? Like, we've seen this stuff before. The Great Depression is a great sort of, like, analog for all of this. What I'm essentially, like, what I'm trying to basically say here is, be careful out there of, like, all of the companies that may seek to exploit you for, the personal gain. None of these people are your friends, obviously, but we have to really wait and see. Yeah, it's the same, like you're saying, Boy Meets Mini, it's the same business model. It's just now significantly scaled up, and it's digitized, which means it's way easier to spread. And guess what? All that data that they're constantly getting, they're also making a profit off of that and selling it off to data brokerages and shit like that. Like, we all know it's all like a system that's rigged for these companies in order to be able to succeed. And the only way you can handle this and stop stuff like this is you need a lot of regulation in order to make it such that these companies can't do that. And I'm keeping it simple. I'm keeping it $1.50. I don't see fucking Congress being able to do anything about this until it's too late. We've seen this fucking behavior happen before, constantly with Congress. But, we'll just fucking wait and see what happens. That's all we can really do at this point. And yeah, this also another really good point there, Boy Meets Mini. Also, this data goes to landlords and property management companies. They use it to vet people for apartment applications. Yeah, this is shit that can also potentially cause a fucking housing crisis, for fuck's sake. It is, quite honestly, it can really, really get that bad with all this, like, debt trap fucking bullshit, right? So, I guess sort of like, as like a quick, like, conclusion here, to be honest, like, just be careful out there, you know? Try not to do, like, a lot of these purchases, for, like, you know, food and shit like that. Like, I don't think what the advice Grant there was saying is inaccurate, you know? And it's just way worse that we are living currently under the conditions that can lead to another potential sort of Great Depression situation, you know, especially with, like, the belligerent that's currently in office, engaging in some of the stupidest economic policy known to man. Stuff like this can potentially make this completely spiral out of control, and the conditions on the ground can simply get worse for everyone else. So just be careful out there is all I'm really saying here. Be careful. Stay woke. Yeah, and try not to get caught in these, like, debt traps is really all I functionally have to say about this.